wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, let me introduce myself. I am Dr. Nurhaniza binti Yusuf, Associate Professor at School of Chemical and Energy Engineering. And on behalf of the organizer, the Frontier Materials Research Alliance, I would like to extend our warm welcome to all guests to this sharing session on how to get consultancy projects from industries. From my experience, that will be given by our honorable speaker for today, Professor IR Dr. Muhammad Salman Leong. Okay, let me give a brief background of our speaker today. Professor IR Dr. Muhammad Salman Leong has more than 35 years professional engineering consulting experience and is acknowledged by the industry and government agencies as the leading authority in acoustic, noise and vibration in the country with 19 years experience in railways. He has been involved in many of the mega projects and high-impact consulting and investigation projects in oil and gas, power generation, infrastructure, and also construction industries. He has been involved in 3 urban transit railway schemes from inception, EIA, scheme, and detailed design and operations. The railway experience also include noise and vibration studies and mitigation for railway main lines, platform isolation design that includes KTM tracks at KL Central affecting hotels and noise and vibration compliance review and audit of the LRT Kelana and Ampang line. He is also responsible for the monitoring and compliance reporting for construction noise and vibration at the KVMRT Underground Works Package worksite for the SBK and SSP line for the construction period. He is the principal specialist and project design for line-wide noise and vibration for the KVMRT SSP line, SBK line, and LRT3 line. He is the founding director of the Institute of Noise and Vibration, a higher institution accredited by National Center of Excellence. He has been involved in more than 500 projects in professional consultancy since 1984. He is acknowledged by industry and government agencies as the leading expert in noise and vibration in Malaysia. His experience includes railways, highways, oil and gas, power generation, and building construction. He is professor of UTM with extensive experience in research in noise and vibration analysis and has published more than 300 scientific papers in international journals and proceedings. With all the experience achievement by Prof. Salman, we should be so lucky today that we can listen to the sharing by Prof. Salman Leong. So without further delay, let us now begin the sharing session. I now welcome Prof. IR Dr. Muhammad Salman Leong to deliver his talk. The floor is yours, Dr.
Ya, terima
Salman.
kasih PM Nohazina. Assalamualaikum dan good afternoon everyone. First, can you see the the PDF slides?
Yes, we can see it.
So you can see the slides. Okay. Terima kasih atas introduction. First, my apologies. I didn't write that CV that you read. I think you probably have taken it from somewhere, and that's more for symposium on railways. Which is why then you concentrate on the railways. My introduction that I will probably given to you will probably be in 2-3 sentences only. So maaf lah, apologies for all the audience to have to actually listen through the text given by Chair Lady. Now, I was approached by Frontiers Materials Research Alliance to give a talk on consultancy projects, how to get it. And in that sense, this is from experience. Let me see. Okay. Now, the project experience. Oh, sorry. Now, it'll probably be useful to actually give you an indication of how it all first started. Obviously, I did a PhD. I got a first degree in 1978, and then I did a PhD in 1979 to 1983, and it was an industrial sponsor project. So even though it was a PhD, I was already working on industry projects for my PhD, sponsored by the Electricity Board Scotland. And in that sense, I was really very involved in vibrations in industrial machines and so on. So when I came back with a PhD in 83, of course, everybody wants to be a PE eng. So when I came back in 83, I got a part-time consulting project. A part-time attachment with Rhinehill. Rhinehill is where Datuk Ridwan came. That was obviously with UTF's permission, where I was allowed 2 days, was it 3 days in a week, to work with a consultant subject to approval of the universities and so on. And ever since I have never stopped. So in that sense, I have had a chance to work on industry projects, as you correctly indicated, 40 years or more. And in that sense, I always like to think of myself as an engineer, a practicing engineer who happens to be teaching. Okay. Now, in 1992, when Datuk Ridwan came from Rhinehill, some of the centers and some of us who are already known to be working in consultancy projects with outside companies were asked to form Center of Excellence. In some sense, it was a request for us to no longer moonlight outside the university and do our projects within the university. So IKG was one of the, I think it was the third COE form. The first one is ISI. Second one is actually Pantai. And then a few months after that is IKG. And all of us who were formed in those period of time are supposed to be self-financing. We are still self-financing. The university gave us seed money. And then ever since after that, except when we become a high COE, there was zero. We have zero peruntukan from the university. So we actually were running as a self-financing center. And of course, the intention is for us to be a referral center for the industry and government agencies. And alhamdulillah, in 2015, we made high COE. Now, in that sense, 1992 to about 2008, we are just like a normal COE within the university. We are not here, we are not there, we are very small, but we are still self-financing now, in the sense that all the ROs that we have and so on are all financed by our work and not by the university, including all our masters and PhD students. So at that time, all our students were really like sponsored by IKG, okay, either through ILPA grants and so on, but their fees were and so on were paid by IKG. And we are in an area where we actually do work with industries, and of course, 2008 onwards and so on, then we went into oil and gas, very heavily into oil and gas and so on, with Petronas and so on. And then, of course, then we start growing. So in that sense, your introduction on railways is just one small part of our growth. We are actually in all areas. We are very heavy into oil and gas, power generation, construction, infrastructure, and various other things. And then, of course, being in this kind of areas, we actually work with all the big boys, all the big companies. All the Petronas companies and so on, all the power generation companies, all the construction companies, and even manufacturing. Manufacturing, we have a love-hate relationship with Proton, SIMW Industrials, and so on, and environmental, and of course government. We do very little government jobs, but we get a lot of government referrals, DOE, DBKL, highway authorities. Now, when all of us, especially academics, when we talk about customer satisfaction, I know this is part of all of our QA, ISO, you get feedback, about customer, how are they satisfied with your performance and so on. So when you send industries Likert scale indicator, mark your services 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. I mean, most of the industries are very polite. I mean, they will never give you 0. They'll never give you, maybe like if you're very good, they give you 10. But that is basically not very relative, not very genuine sometimes. Our Malaysian culture, Asian culture are very polite. To us, the real world measure of whether they are satisfied with your work or not is repeat orders. Because that's where they put money where their mouth is. If they say you're good and they will use you, then of course, then you know that you are doing okay. So to us, basically, it is the repeat orders. It's the real world measure, not a Likert scale. Likert scales, we can always get 100 or 99 or 95. But whether you get a second job, third job, and all their jobs. In terms of Petronas, this is just some indicators of some of our Petronas jobs. In the past, we used to get about 2-3 Petronas projects every year. And then sometimes we don't get it directly from Petronas. We get it from Petronas punya vendors, people who are contractors of Petronas when they need to do work and so on. And every now and then and so on, we still do 1 or 2 projects for Petronas projects. So that's an indication of industries and so on. And in terms of Gamuda, of course, Gamuda is very big. We started doing the projects about 20-25 years ago in highways and so on. All the MRT projects. And for the Penang, EIA, LRT and so on. And right now we're actually tendering for MRT Line 3, MRT Line 3 Circle Line and so on with Gamuda. And in 2014, 2015, we were told, get a letter, but we were told by the management, they always appraise their 200 plus consultants. UTM will rank number 1, joined number 1 in 2014, number 5, and in 2015 one. After that, I don't know whether they did it or not and so on, but that is their own internal blacklisting and ranking of consultants. I still like to think we are very close up there because we are actually going in very heavily with them on MRT Line 3. I'll talk about it afterwards. And in Sunway Construction, same. We do a lot of work for Sunway. And whenever Sunway tender for a project, projects that they haven't got, today the tender open. This afternoon I'll get a call from Sunway. Hey, look, Prof, Doc, have you been approached by others? So this is an indication that you're doing okay. Same thing with EcoWest and so on. And in highways, we don't know all the highway developers, but this is where you get referrals. Highways in Malaysia are governed by the Malaysian Highway Authority, all the privatized highways. So half of the highways we get are from referrals from Malaysian Highway Authority, who then tell the people who develop the highways, for this and this, for this you need to sort out this problem, and you go to see so and so in UTM. Now, of course, the biggest projects that's going to happen over the next 12 years and so on are railway projects. Alhamdulillah, we are involved in all the railway projects in Malaysia. Okay, and I mean MRT 1, 2, LRT 3, East Coast Railway, the one that's from Kota Baru to Port Klang. Even RTS, we did some work. And then, of course, MRT Line 3. The EIA is done. Right now is the tendering for consultants and contractors for the construction. Now, in terms of income, about 88%, more than 88% of our income is from private sector. 10% is from GLCs, government-linked companies, Petronas and the various GLCs and so on. Only 1% comes from government. And even this for government, what we do, what we call garis panduan and so on. So we don't actually rely on government to get our projects. So in a nutshell, in that sense, IKG operates what I call in the cutthroat world of industries. So we are swimming in a deep ocean with the industries where performance is expected. Basically, there's no free lunch. Okay. I mean, nobody give you a project out of CSR. Okay. All right. Now, basically, then that's just to give you a background of where we are coming from in terms of our involvement with industries. And in that sense, some of the materials are from talks which I have been talking about for the last 15 years, once in a while and so on, for faculties and COEs and so on. But last year, there was one talk which I gave on sustainable relationship in industrial linkages. And then sometime early this year, UTHM asked me to talk about negotiations, skills with industries. So some of the slides and so on. Some of you who sit through my lectures or talk have listened to it. So for that, I apologize. But there are some materials in between here, but half of the materials are from previous things. And in that sense, why I'm talking about all this is, and why I've been approached is, I guess people want me to talk about IKG and my own experience. Now, in that sense, the experience that we're talking about is in context of an academician who happens to be doing consultancy work in the real world industries, including contract research. And this is our experience from IKG and myself. Okay. Now, first, I'd like to add, this is not anything I say here is not intended to offend any people or to blow bad any brag and so on. So I like you all to consider the fact that this is just for the sharing of experience. And I believe most of the audience are from internal UTM and so on, but may have some external audience and so on. But generally, this is to mentor and to share with fellow academicians to unlock the potential and the capacity of others in the industries, in academia, and in that sense. So in some sense, this is what I always say: we walk the talk. Unlike some other situations where we are not what we call a desktop consultant or a desktop engineer. We do real work. Until recently, even myself and so on, we used to go to the field, including myself. You see in the profile and so on. Before I retired, compulsory retirement and so on, I was still going offshore. Okay. So in that sense, this is just to share the know-how, but this is what we call a hands-on approach. But there's some part of the talk where I think we have to frame it in context. Why is it important? Because sometimes a lot of people tak faham. Academicians, isn't there a contradiction? Why should academicians do consultancy? Now, it has relevance in the sense that consultancy, especially for technical universities like us, make you relevant so that you're not a textbook engineer, so that you are not actually obsolete. And the other area very important is about wealth creation. Like it or not, it's about making money for the university, and in the process, the university has a profit sharing basis where we can then get paid ourselves as well. And in some sense, not a lot of people know. For the last few years and so on, my salary is not paid by UTM. My salary is not paid by the government of Malaysia and so on, and including the team that I have in IKG in terms of engineers. We actually earn our own salaries. Okay, except that I like to correct except that this year UTM suddenly mungkin rasa guilty. Then put me on a flexi academic scheme and so on, where I only get paid on the days I clock in. Okay. Other than that, for the last since Gawat and so on, even my own salary doesn't come from UTM. So in a sense, we have to earn our income. So we are like an operating company or a private consulting company within the university ecosystem. Okay. But the other areas that we talk about is about knowledge, about ability, academic, and so on. So I like to have a few slides in terms of wealth creation, some thoughts. Now, this was a slide in my talk which I put in about 2016, and that's almost 6 years ago and so on. And that time I already indicated that it's time for us to be financially self-sufficient. The only problem is for us, a lot of academics, because we are all used to research grant and so on. We have $1 million research grant to spend and so on. And spending money is easy. And we're all very comfortable and so on. Our gaji was all paid and so on. Whether you work hard, you don't work hard and so on. We had it easy. And food was served on the table. But in 2012, I already indicated warning that basically, and it's not only myself, even former NC Zaini Ujang and so on, were at that time talking about UTM to be financially independent by 2020. I don't think we're there yet. And of course, then budget cut came. University budget was cut by half and so on. Then even the minister was talking about universities shouldn't depend on government. So like it or not, academicians have to start making money. So wealth creation by academics. So in that sense, basically, it is possible, and it is basically from knowledge. So what actually we are selling? We are actually selling our knowledge and time. And this is genuine wealth creation because in the sense that you actually create something tangible, which is cash and various other things from your know-how. So in that sense, the return of investment is actually very high. Then, of course, there are things like R&D, commercialization services. But this is where the problem is again, commercialization for academicians. They talk about patenting, license. But the question is, within the university in Malaysia, don't talk about in MIT and so on, I mean, overseas country and so on. How many of our IPs, our patent and so on, actually get converted into cash? I actually removed a few slides because to cut it short and so on. I have a friend whose ambitions to become a billionaire, and I think he is Asian in Australia and so on. He was saying his observation about universities. IPs actually, patents and so on is actually for shocks in the real. I mean, that's what he says. His recommendations is actually you need to be the first to market. You need to actually convert your R&D into a tangible and so on. Books and publications in Malaysia, we can't make money because we can't pretty much make money from them and so on. Now, why is it still important other than money aspects? Like it or not, a lot of us needs to get our professional BNs, our PNs and so on, your PAM and so on. So you need to get the practical experience. There's real life perspective to your work. And I used to say, how can you be teaching noise and vibration control if you don't actually do noise and vibration control in the streets? If you don't do that, then you are just a textbook engineer. So you need to actually do real work, and you need to do real design for you to teach somebody how to design. So how can you teach people how to design a bridge if in real life you never design a bridge? So it's the same as a doctor. How do you actually teach people how to operate? Do an open heart surgery if you actually haven't done an open heart surgery yourself. So that's the only major and proven way to make you an expert. Okay. So eventually that's what you call a pakar rujuk. All right, so let's get down to the how-to. So how to get consultancy projects from industries. Now, for you to answer these questions, or for me to answer these questions, you need to basically rephrase the questions. Okay, and the question shall be rephrased to, why would a client or the industry engage a consultant? I mean, both are the same. If you can answer the question in red, you probably will get an answer to your first question, how to get projects from industries. So you should think of the client side. Okay, why would a client want to engage a consultant? Now I have, and I've used these slides for almost like 20 years already. I mean, this is things from my own experience. Why would a client want a consultant for industry and so on? It's because they don't know how to do it. They don't have the resources, the equipment, or knowledge to do it. Sometimes the client has all that, but they do not want to do it. And you get the job and so on is because you have the resources to do it. You can do it better. You can do it cheaper. You can do it faster. And sometimes it's also a case of the client wants somebody to be responsible. So if anything goes wrong, it's your neck that's on the chopping block, not the guy who employs you. So if a factory manager and so on wants to employ you to get a job done, he may already know the answer sometimes, but he doesn't. I mean, that's not his job work scope to actually try and solve a problem that his plant has. So then he say, look, I get a consultant. So if the consultant don't solve the problem, he will blame the consultant. Okay. Otherwise, then he get blamed as boss. Mengapa you pandai-pandai? I mean, you're not expert. So what it all means, it means that you must have the know-how, which is not commonly known. You can do it cheaper or more cost-effective and quicker. Why doesn't a client want to do it? Because it's dirty, because it's nasty, because it's risky. I mean, in UK, I used to do my own car service. Good old days when I drive a car like Mr. Bean. I had to do the service and so on. And it was quite dirty because you get your hand dirty and so on. Okay. By the time you're a student, so I mean, because it's dirty and so on. But if you can afford it and so on, then you might as well send it to a workshop. Okay. And as I say, it's so that he can also blame the client can blame you and so on. So it's basically in the end, it's only four things. It's about ability, it's about the cost, it's about the responsibility, and it's about liability. What's expected of a consultant? You're expected to be able to offer expert advice. The fact that you already say, look, I'm selling you my services means must have some ability to offer the service. Then you can offer recommendations and decisions. This requires competence and prior expertise. That means you already have the expertise. I mean, it's just nice to say, look, I get paid to learn, but in consultancy, it's not about getting paid while you're learning. And very often in industry, it's about bringing value to the project. You must bring value to the project and to the client. And all the above has to be within a timeline and budget constraints. And then in the end, anything goes wrong, there is accountability and responsibility. And I think we academicians tend to forget about professional liability. Now, why is the industry first very reluctant to use universities? One is, and these are the usual complaint, it's about timeliness. IPT always think in terms of months and years. You submit a proposal and say, oh, yeah, I'll come back to you. We'll answer in 2 years' time. I'll come back to you in 3 years' time. Okay, maybe 12 months. The industry wants it in weeks. Maximum is months, not yesterday. Sorry, I mean, and very often, kalau boleh, yesterday. Okay. Now, the other thing is about competence. The competence basically we're talking about is very often we are too academic. We have no sense of reality. So we have sloppy work. And experience means basically we don't have the track record. And very often when the industry complain, they say we don't measure up. And then very often they also complain about attitude. You're basically academicians, especially professors, all have ivory tower syndrome. And then in the end, problem with universities is very hard to assign accountability and blame. And there are some comments there. I don't want to discuss the details why all those comments are real. I mean, are there, but they are real comments. As I said, Gamuda, this is a white man, Masali, project and so on. He said he was talking about another guy's work from another university. Okay, before we actually did the work for Gamuda. This work is not worth the paper it's written on. And he actually said that and in front of their directors about another university. And then another public listed company says we will never use universities again. Or where Suncorn is friends of mine and so on, some construction and so on. I was trying to introduce UTM, one of the lab for a project. Then his reply was, look, Salman, we'd like to help your friends, but we have to deliver. This is why I've said putting money out is because when the reputation of the company that you're working with is there, they will always want to work with people who can deliver. And there's also another complaint about another company about somebody. And he was saying this work is too simplistic. It lacks practical appreciation. And that's another professor friend of mine that's talking about, which I was trying to introduce him for a certain work that he wants. Now, academics don't do it because of competence. Either we don't have the skills, we have no experience. And the experience is about chicken and egg story. If you have no experience, you can't get a new job. You can't get a job, you can't get the experience. So how do we actually break the egg? So it's always a usual problem. And of course, that pressure, because when you start dealing with industry, it's always about expectation and so on. And the problem is some academics, we complain we have no opportunity. Now, let's go on with some definition here first to actually give, shall we say, to supplier the talk is a little bit less serious. And these are somewhere I read dulu, long time ago. What is a banker? A banker is a person who lends you an umbrella. So the banker lends you an umbrella when it is sunny. And then the banker will take it away when it's raining. And I think that's what happened in most situations with banks and the industries. And then a consultant, this is what I read. A consultant is a person who tells you the time from your watch, and then he'll charge you for it. So consultant is about telling people the time, about knowledge and so on. And then this is a talk I gave a long time ago, and this is from my student who then shared this photograph with me. Okay. And then I found it, well, it's the same slide actually I was using, which when I get this definition, and I have another slide called the ultimate consultant. The ultimate consultant is the person who tells you the time from your watch and charge you for it and gets to keep your watch. So that's what we actually like to be in that position where we will finally become the ultimate consultant. Now, the other area we talk about expertise. So what's an expert? An expert is a person who has made all the mistake that is to be made. But problem is the client doesn't want you to make the mistake on their project. So you got to make your mistake somewhere else. Now, there's another thing that I always talk about in terms of contract research when is a project research and when is a project called a consultancy project? I have some very simple definition. Research is when I'm learning. So when I do a project under FRGS, IPA grant, and so on, I'm learning. And when you're learning, you don't expect to charge people for it. Consulting is when I am solving your problem. So research is when I'm developing the know-how. Consulting is when I have the know-how. And why this is important? Because the financial motivations are different. So when you're doing research, you shouldn't be thinking about financial motivation as your driver. You should be looking at acquiring the knowledge. And I have done projects in the past when I'm learning, where I don't charge any money for it. But the problem with a lot of academicians, including professors, when they're learning on a project, they expect to be charging the client for it. No client will ever pay you while you're learning. Because if they pay you, they expect you to already have the know-how. But in the end of the day, the common element here is knowledge. It's whether you're acquiring the knowledge or whether you are using the knowledge. Okay. Now, so how do you get the projects? So let's talk about the physical process. So this is the physical process to answer the question which the RA has asked me to talk about. Now, the physical process is very simple. Usually, there's a request for proposal. So we call it RFP, request for proposal. Sometimes they use the terminology request for quotation. So you are asked to come back with a quote. And that may be a direct email or WhatsApp and so on that comes to you directly or even advertised. Then sometimes you get what's known as an ITB. Petronas like to use this word, ITB, invitation to bid. Or sometimes it's called an invitation to tender. And it's the same when any of you as Ketua Makmal, as Ketua Project, you want to buy, we say you want to buy a laser printer or you want to buy some equipment, then you send out quotations to all the registered vendors. So basically, you're just requesting for quotation. Now, then in the end, basically, you have to respond to an inquiry. So if you get the invitation, you are basically responding to, so you have been approached. So in that sense, it's more straightforward because a party who needs the services have reached out to you directly, indirectly, or through various advertisement through the medium and so on. The other one is more difficult, and that's to seek out an opportunity. This is when you know of certain projects, you are not in the invitation list, or you want to identify and create the opportunity to be considered for a project. Then this is seeking an opportunity and what we call reaching out and cold call. Now, a request for proposal, invitation to bid, basically in the end is about a scope of work. They will come back with a work scope and so on, or a project brief. The government agencies like to call it TORA, term of reference. So if you get this from government agencies and so on, they will say, look, we have a TOR, term of reference. But in the end of the day, basically, then you need to respond with a technical and commercial proposal. Sometimes people just say you come back with a proposal, but your proposal basically have two elements, a technical part and a commercial part. So basically, some people call it a technical and fee proposal. So you separate it into two different elements. Now, Petronas even better. Petronas sometimes don't even ask for commercial until they see your technical. And then if you're good enough, baru, then they say, look, submit a commercial proposal. Because they don't want to waste your time. They don't want to waste your time. So very often, your technical proposal has to be there before they consider. If it's an invitation to quote or tender, your documents will have to be submitted in two separate documents. They will not open your commercial or your fee proposal until and unless you get a green on your technical. So maksudnya, no point even looking at it commercially unless they are satisfied that technically you're okay. So usually you're not okay. Usually you have a green, yellow, or red. It's a traffic light system. Green means you're clear to technical. Yellow means they need to seek clarification. So they need to clarify before they either make you a green or red. Red means basically they don't even want to consider your commercial, then no point talking. So basically you have lost a job. So you must go into green before your commercial gets considered. That is on very big projects where there is, shall we say, a tender board and so on. Now, these are examples from oil and gas. And this one example on the left is still a live document. So we get a request for technical proposal, and you see the word there, technical. So and this is from a vendor of Petronas, but this is for a project in Sarawak. 20th, 9 March, we get and of course we get an email first. would you like to do this and this and so on? Then they say yes, we can do it and so on. Then you get a request for technical proposal, and of course then we submitted, and then they clarify and so on, and then we submitted a financial proposal. What's the status of it? I still don't know, but our financial proposal is being considered at Petronas Premier level. Now that's more recent, that's this year. And then long time ago, as I said, when we started growing big, we get a request for proposal from Technical Services Petronas. So you will get another piece of document, which they will send to various people. And then they will ask for clarification, technical and commercial clarification. So these are the normal procedures that you walk through. Now, from the construction industries, you may get an invitation, and this is request for proposal for acoustic consulting services. So this is for project development and so on in Damansara and so on. And then it will tell you what's the work scope and so on. Or sometimes it's just an email. An email that following a telephone conversation and so on. We have a requirement for you to do a noise study and noise barrier design. This project is all finished already, and so on. But that's how, and the work scope is like 2 lines, and then you have to formulate them. Now, this is more recent. And in fact, this is only 9 days ago. Okay. So we get a term of reference from DBKL for us to do guidelines for noise for DBKL to be made regulations or guidelines in KL. And then, as I said, the government likes to use the word TOR, terms of reference. Now, I also got another email on the same day, and this is from Singapore, about we going into a project on them and so on for data measurements of vibration, or noise and trace and so on. So then they will then ask you they usually you will have to clear certain things, non-disclosure agreement and so on, and then you have to submit a proposal. Now, this is another example from the industries. So industry, sometimes they call it a project charter. And this is SIMW Industries. You have a project charter, upon which then they tell you what the project is about. And in fact, they indicated that this is a high priority project. This is an internal document which they share with you on the project and what they want to do and so on. And then they, of course, then they give you the background, the objective and so on. And then you have to submit a proposal. Now, you can also basically look at advertisement, and this is Malaysia MRT Line 3. And why I'm using this is because these are all current examples. When I asked to give this talk, I didn't want to dig up too much, so I just dig out what is recent. Now, this is advertised in the newspaper and online and so on. And this is Malaysia's biggest infrastructure project. And of course, if you get this project, then whoever gets this project will be working for the next 12 years. So on the left is like notice of request for proposal. And this is a proposal by MRT Corp in the Malaysian newspaper saying that they are looking for project management consultant for the MRT Line 3. And of course, then they put in the conditions. You must be registered MOF, what you must have the mandatory experience and so on. And then you must have the experience to manage a $1 billion project. So UTSB, of course, for sure, cannot even qualify and so on. And so on. But these are actually meant for all the big boys. This is an international tender. Okay. And then, of course, MRT Line 3 also calls for tender for the contractors. And the contractors also needs design consultants. Of course, IKG is not going in for the project management consultant for this project because this is consultants for the client to represent the client. We are going in for doing the actual design work, the engineering work, and so on with the contractors. So this, then you will have to find out who are the tenderers for all these projects. Now, either you have to find out who are tendering for all these projects and then you have to speak to them and so on, or else they will reach you out to you. So if they know you, who you are and so on, they will call you. And then they will come and say, look, we are tendering for this project. I need a consultant for noise and vibration in this project. Now, let's show you a live example. Okay. Like this one, seeking out an opportunity. Now, I mean, seeking out opportunity is basically three things. Forget about the WhatsApp on the left. First, you follow the news or a lead of a project. So you know about certain project and so on, then you have to actually find out what are the lead and so on. And the other one is basically about marketing. Another one is about networking, acquaintance, and relationship. You need relationships and so on because sometimes you don't know about all the projects that's in the market. And again, this is just on WhatsApp. In fact, I just screenshot it. I only got this message today. Okay. So good morning, Professor. MRT tender submission requires an acoustic consultant and they require a profile. I'd like to recommend you for this project and so on and so on. And then the other one is, this is sometime in March. They are saying that they need a certain requirements for vibration tests and so on, okay? And can I please send him details and code and so on. So this is how basically you need to have acquaintance and relationship. Okay. Now following the lead, I'm talking about the first one, following the lead. So let's deal with this. Now this is only announced 3 days ago. And of course I have it because I'm actually looking at the news. There's going to be a new highway proposed to connect Klang Valley East and North. So if you are interested in this project and you have to see what you can do, you need to find out who's the project owner and who's the project consultant. And very often you will know who the project owners are. Down there they mention this is a project by so and so and so and so, and the project consultant is HSSI. So you need to find out who the owner is and who the project consultant is. Then you call them to see whether you can be involved in that project. But the biggest question is, what's your chance? The honest question is, for most of us, the chance is very low. It's almost like 1% or almost zero. Okay, because for mega projects, they usually will ask around. They will ask around who are the specialists, and they will probably need 4 or 5 specialists. Who are all the specialists and so on. And once they know who the specialist is, they'll probably ask for a request proposal. But I'm not saying that you still can't get it. You still can go and make yourself known. But in the end, it all depends on your track record and relevance. Are you relevant for the project? I mean, you cannot sell them things that they don't need. So you say, look, I mean, I'll be blunt here. You say, look, I want to do an earthquake analysis and so on. I'm an earthquake guy. But if this project doesn't require earthquake, no point you go and see them. You may try and convince them that you say, look, I think you need an earthquake analysis because your road needs to be designed to be earthquake proof. So then you may have a chance, but you may not have if that is not in their project requirements. And then if you convince them that they need you, then of course, then it depends on your track record. So what's the likelihood of IKG getting involved in this project? I honestly don't know because this is only 3 days old. Okay. Would I be calling all these 3 companies and so on? The answer is no. Okay. Because generally, I mean, again, I mean, this is where I say, I mean, I and so on. Because eventually the highway guys needs to speak to LLM. Because in the end of the day, the project must be approved by the what we call the Malaysian Highway Authority. Lembaga Raya Malaysia. LLM know us, and we have get referral jobs referred to us. So in that sense, I don't want to say that we are uncool. Probably we don't want to make cold calls because your chance is very low. If the project needs a noise and vibration consultant, they will either find out who they are or they will get referred to us. So eventually the time will come. Even when they want to employ a consultant, not us, they want to get a code and so on, you'll get invited. So you need to be in that stage. Now, this is another current example. So this is another current example. And this is only in March this year. There's an announcement of Johor LRT. This is not RTS. So some of you stay in Johor. So Johor, alhamdulillah, will eventually going to get a LRT. Not public news yet, but if you follow the news, then you get wind that there are 3 public listed companies here or 2 public listed companies here and so on, are collaborating with a Thailand punya railway company and so on for a railway project. So the project owners is really known. So this is in public domain. The problem is there are a few companies involved. And the problem is who to approach. Do you approach ACOM, NCOM, NILEX, or CNEC, or BTS? And chances is when you call a company and you call out the switchboard, probably they don't even know who. So your best bet is always to identify who the project consultant is. But the problem is that we don't even know who's the project consultant because it's not mentioned. So who and how? And the question is how to find out. Okay. So this is a project which, as I said, very recent. And this is only 3 days ago. I get on WhatsApp. I get a phone call. I get on WhatsApp from the project consultant. And they call up, say, Professor Salman and so on. We have this Johor LRT and so on. We want you to submit a technical and fee proposal. So in that sense, if you are one of the key people in the industries, and in that sense, put it this way, for a project of this size, and we with our kind of track record, eventually you will be considered. Whether we'll get it or not, I still won't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know whether we'll get it or not. but at least we have been considered for it. I have not even written up the proposal yet. As I said, this is only 3 days old. You get a project brief, so they tell you what the project is about. You'll get a alignment. So in that sense, this is still under PNC, where they are and so on. Okay. But we are asked to submit a bid. Okay. So at least you get considered. So this is basically in the end. But back to this other question here. Okay. A lot of people, first thing is they ask for your profile. So please send your company profile. So in the end of the day, one of your key documents, you must have a profile. And people like to call it company profile. IKG is not a company profile, but we have a profile. And the profile talks about capability statements. So the capability statement is, what's your technical capabilities? If I have the time, I will walk through you IKG's profile. It talks about all of our expertise, what we can do and what we cannot do. Whether we can actually do this or that and so on, it's all spelled out there. So there's no point for a client to consider IKG if it's not within our capabilities. Sometimes some people call it cap statements, capability statements. So it is a declaration of what you're capable of. And then, of course, it defines your services and expertise. So you want to seriously consider for projects and so on, you must have a profile. It's not a 2-page brochure. Brochure is all very fancy and so on. Put it this way, IKG doesn't even have a brochure. I know we are supposed to and so on. But in the end, this is the most important document. So any projects and so on, people want to see a profile. Profiles means what you can and cannot do. What are your resources? What are your equipment? What are your people? And so on. What are your project lists? So you have the project list. And then your CVs. Okay. Now, so that concludes first part of the talk. The second part is basically that this earlier part and so on, this is just a mechanism, the mechanics. As I say, you're walking the steps. But how to walk the steps? The how? You have to do the following. The bigger process. So this is the bigger picture. So you need to actually look at the bigger picture. The bigger process is that you need to develop an expertise. You must have an expertise or you must have the resources. And in the end, you must determine what services you wish to offer. You cannot be doing everything underneath the sky. Okay? IKG don't want to say, look, I can do wind tunnel testing. We are not do that. We can do wind-induced vibration, but we cannot do wind tunnel testing. If we want to, we can, but we have not gone to that, And we'll then use the wind tunnel lab in mechanical and so on. Sometimes we are asked to do computational fluid dynamics. So we can do computational fluid dynamics associated with vibration and so on, So you have to define as to what services you wish to do. And in the end, then basically it's about industrial linkages, getting started. Soliciting projects, the proposals and referrals. And you have to develop the necessary skills. And the skills is just not technical skills. You also have to develop other secondary skills, communication skills, and negotiation skills. So the expertise and resources, the what and how. You have to find the needs. So you must identify the needs. And the needs will lead you to the projects. Money, basically. So developing an expertise means basically acquiring the knowledge and skills. You must develop a know-how. And this is how sometimes, like it or not, you need to be a researcher. When you're a researcher, as I said, you're learning. So you need to do your homework. So you need to do your homework and you're developing your know-how. Then you need to develop a niche. You can be a general purpose doctor, GP, or you can be a specialist surgeon. So, but in the end of the day, you need to be good in whatever you choose to do. Now, how to be good and so on, then basically, sometimes you need to understudy with a mentor, or you may look at a role model. Then basically, in the end of the day, is about developing problem-solving skills, developing the combination skills, including negotiations. And then finally is about swimming in deep waters. So you need to swim in the deep side of the pool. You need to swim in the ocean. You cannot be swimming in the baby's pool. Because in the end of the day, you either swim or you drown. And this is how sometimes I develop my engineers and my PhD students. I mean, I have minimal supervision and so on. Either they learn how to swim or they drown. And I let them swim and I throw them to the deep end. And of course, as a supervisor, I make sure they don't drown. I'll catch them and make sure that they will survive. So eventually learn how to swim. Of course, alhamdulillah, I don't have any student who, but basically it's about getting out of your comfort zone. Now, for academicians, is it difficult to do? But basically, you already done, since a lot of the, I won't say all, but many of us already have a PhD. So when you have a PhD, surely you have already gone through a diligent process in problem solving. So it is basically a systematic problem solving process. Consultancy project in industry is basically defining a problem. So in research, it's basically a research statement. In the industry, sometimes we call it a need statement, or we call it a problem statement. Then you need to find out what others has done. Then you need to map out and undertake the task that's required to solve the problem. And then you work towards the end of the tunnel. And of course, then it talks about validating and interpreting the results. And like it or not, it is about defending your work. Again, you cannot have this uncle punya thing. I send you a report, whatever I say in the report is gospel truth. And you shall accept my report. I can tell you in industry, they will challenge your report. They in fact get unfriendly parties to actually tear your report apart. And this is what we call independent checking engineers. Okay, so they will get independent checking engineers to actually check your work. I learned this very early because when I did KLIA1 is a very old project, a very long time ago. I did a project, and that was the first time that project was on an international scale. The report that I wrote, I didn't realize it, but I wrote a noise acoustic report for KLIA1. It was actually sent to the Netherlands Airport Consortium in Netherlands, and I was a bit simplistic in my report. The work, and they actually wrote down there, this is rubbish, Okay, we don't say that of other people, but I sometimes use this word, but the industries and so on, if it's rubbish, they'll say this is rubbish, because I oversimplify some things. So after that, anything that you ever write and the moment you send out, you must be mentally conditioned that somebody will read your work. And tak semestinya everybody will agree with your work. And there are people out there who will purposely find something wrong with your work. So if your report don't get checked by yourselves and other people and so on, okay, you're going to get hanged. And as I say, somebody actually said, after that, I learned the lesson very well. It's not wrong. I have oversimplified a problem or definition and so on. And then basically then I realized that I was trying to simplify for a layman to understand. But it's read by a technical expert. And then the guy actually said, this is rubbish. Now, you have to see what others are doing and how we measure. So you have to actually go and see profiles and so on and things by other people. So you identify other service providers and see what they're doing. For UTM, I suggest you actually go and look at Arup. Arup is one of the world's biggest international consultants, and they are doing a lot of work that UTM is actually doing in terms of our advanced consulting work and so on. They have an advanced technology and research. You should actually go into their web page and so on and look at the video. And a lot of things that we are doing, they are doing. And then you benchmark your work against the best. Now, why I will say this? Because in the end of the day, for mega projects, they are your competitors. For all the MRT projects, we are competing against Arup. Okay, in MRT Line 2 and Line 3, Arup is the client's consultant, UTM is the contractor's consultant, and our work is audited and checked by Arup. Okay, so if you don't measure up, they will say this is garbage. So you will have independent checking engineers, and they will audit your work. So be prepared to be, if the moment you want to charge people money for a project, especially for big projects, be prepared that your work will be scrutinized by unfriendly parties. Not like your peer review paper. Sometimes some editors are very polite. They'll suggest you how to improve. But sometimes the peer review also can be very nasty. I've seen nasty one before. Okay, as you submit for peer review. Except that this is one more nasty. Okay, because they are paid by the client to find what's wrong with your work. Okay, so you have to see what people are doing. Then you will be very good. Because that's when you learn how to swim in a sea that's full of sharks. Now, what services to do? From a university point of view, you can do testing and measurements. You can do design and analysis. You can do specialist services. Now, testing services, these are lab testing. compliance testing, standard testing, data validation, quality assurance, product testing, specification, certification. You can also be like on-site testing and so on. You may Oshaga and so on and so on. Now the problem is testing services and so on are very capital intensive. UTM lab and so on. UTM have a central lab and so on. Of course, they can do this kind of testing, but that is UTM trying to like leverage on our equipment. But if you want to start up a business for doing testing, they are capital intensive. The equipment needs replacement. It is need maintenance and so on. The question of ROI, can your testing work pay for the replacement of the equipment? And a lot of us argue like, oh yeah, we use it for teaching, we use it for research, The question is basically, kadang-kali we like to make some money on the side, the UC and so on for testing and so on, so that we actually help the industries. Correct. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong, but the question is then you have to be mindful about whether this is a profitable kind of business or not, because it's capital intensive. And in then, like it or not, CIRIM is the preferred one-stop center. A lot of us sometimes can do the work that CIRIM do. But CIRIM is the preferred center by industries. Because CIRIM can offer a CIRIM cert. We cannot. So don't ever try to compete with CIRIM. But can you be different from CIRIM? The answer is yes. So we are still doing some work that CIRIM cannot do. So we get industry coming to us after they go to CIRIM. And then CIRIM will tell them, look, this kind of special test, one-off test, we don't know how to do, or we don't have resources to do it. You go and see UTM. So we get referral from CIRIM. So we don't compete with CIRIM. That means for most of the industry, 99% of their work and so on, they go to CIRIM. But if CIRIM cannot help them, then CIRIM will say, look, these are only guys in the country who can help you. So you go to them. So we are doing these kind of things where CIRIM cannot do. And we also do site testing. CIRIM don't do site testing. CIRIM is you have to go to the lab. So like what we call site testing and so on. So these are all special tests on site. So you need to be different from CIRIM. Specialist services. Specialist services are basically services that you do failure analysis, troubleshooting, problem solving, cost effect, forensic, design audit, expert review, data interpretation and assessment. It requires prior knowledge and expertise. Sometimes we do work that requires certain element of research and critical thinking, expert witness. Now I have removed one slide for time's sake. Now one is called design and analysis services. These are actually things that the normal consultant do, the M&E consultants, the design consultants, the architectural consultants. Now, a summary. So testing services, equipment intensive, low intellectual content. That means your billing is very low. Design and analysis services, these are computational tools required. You cannot compete against an architect firm. That means our Alam Bena can still do architectural design, but they cannot compete with architectural company. Our mechanical engineers can do aircon design, but they cannot compete against that kind of company. So we are not competitive against private companies. So we either go on the bottom, because we do have a lab, or we go to the very top. So these are what we call high intellectual capital required. High value building. And with high value building and so on, it comes high responsibility. Because all this have professional indemnity. And of course, then you talk about training. You can do basic training, you can do skills training and so on. So you can also get it from the industries. But we talk about identifying Consultancy project and so on, but these are like more to do with training. Now, technical services. So you have to go fishing. So you have to go fishing. Question is, the fish will not come to you. We like to think of it that way. So you need to identify the niche, you need to identify the clients, you need to identify the needs, you need to submit the proposal, you need to do the work. And then, of course, once you get the work, you need to do it in a timely manner. So identifying your niche. So you ask yourself this question, what is your field of expertise? What are you actually good at? I mean, if you're not good at it right now, you can still try and be good at it. But the question is, you might as well do something that you already have spent half your life studying and so on. So you probably be an extension of your PhD and so on. But you still can develop new expertise. So what can you be good at? What can you be better than others? And at the end of the day, you better love what you're doing. Because if you don't have answers for all the above, then it's very hard. So, and you need to have a certain level of passion for it. So the question is how to get started. Getting started means you need to find a client. Who's your customer? Of course, the easiest is government, because government is usually very friendly. GLC is also more friendly. As I said, the cutthroat world is private sectors. And the private sectors will be the consultants, the contractors, the manufacturers, and the vendors. And you can actually go to the organizations. So you need to identify your needs. Okay. You need to understand the client need, not what you think they need. It's a bit different. So you actually have to identify their needs. So basically, what they need, in the end of the day, basically in a nutshell, they need solutions. It's a question: what is the solution? So when you crystallize everything, it's all about solutions. Now, then, how to secure a project? For you to get a project, you must solve a problem and you must create value. So the industry must see it worthwhile. It's worth their time and money because it's opportunity cost to them. That it is an investment and not expense. Now, if you see that as an expense, and sometimes they still get consultants for expense, then by default, they will go to the cheapest. And you need not be the cheapest. IKG is never the cheapest. But we are known among the industries, including Gamuda and so on, we have value for money. Value for money means basically it's worth paying for what you do. Now, what's the UC strength? Our strength is basically we have the resources, the physical and human capital. We have the analytical skills. We are research oriented. Like it or not, we are actually still cheap. Okay? Because many of us are not driven by money. So many of us are actually doing a project and so on, in the fact that because we see that we can learn something to it and so on. So sometimes we are what we call not for profit kind of organization. It doesn't mean that you don't charge money, but you're not motivated. Profit is not your number one motivation. Our weakness, we lack the practical know-how. We are too theoretical. Academicians have very poor timelines, and we are not used to accountability. Okay. Same, you must know your SWOT, you must do your SWOT test. Okay. Now, how can it start? You need some form of catalyst. It can be a referral from a government agencies or external party, or you need to profile and target an end user, and you must identify the area where they need experts for technology access. So you need to do your homework. You have to develop the expertise, and you need to be the best. Because you like to be among the best, if not the best. And you need to build up your experience. Because the industries don't want guinea pigs. Now, if you are building a hotel, and this was said to me very early when I was in Rand Hill used to say, look, we are not the biggest company, but we are the hotel, we are the consultant with the most hotel experience in Malaysia. So they'll always get hotels. So if you are a developer and you want to build a hotel, do you want to go to a consultant that has built 500 hotels, or do you go to a consultant that has only built one hotel? So the answer is very obvious, is it? When a client looks for this, and there's a reason why a client looks for a consultant, you have to think of their perspective. What is the motivation for them getting you? And this is the whole problem. So it becomes a chicken egg story. If you have no experience, how are you going to get a project? If you don't have a project, how are you going to get experience? But that's the reality of the situation. So it is a chicken and egg story. So how to break the egg? So you have to create an opportunity. You either have to get an introduction or referral, sometimes through IEM, sometimes through agencies. Somehow you have to give a talk and so on. You have to have associates. You may have to have classmates or alumni. You may have to profile the industries and so on. But like it or not, if you don't have experience, you need to have a pilot study. You try and have a cold call and so on. So you need to do it for the first time. So when you're doing it for the first time, don't expect to get paid. All the projects I do the first time, I always do it for free. When I was a junior lecturer, when I came back in 1983, I was doing work in Tenaga and so on for free. I was doing work for my friends in Singapore on an Exxon Mobil refinery and so on for free. Traveling expenses, you pay yourself because you're learning. So you learn by practical training, by attachment, you work on a pilot study, or some of you may be lucky, you're going to find a mentor. So some people who are within our group and so on, so if they start looking out for Professor Salman and so on, then you get an opportunity. So practical training attachments, you get attached to a consulting company or a company that sells services and so on, a vendor, corporate organization, R&D organization, R&D. Okay. Pilot study. So pilot study is about an exploratory project. It's a research project. You initiate it with some associations. Basically, it's at no cost to the client. When I came back with a PhD, I actually approached Petronas and said, look, I want to be attached to do projects with Petronas and so on. And then they refer me to ExxonMobil and so on. So then from friends and so on, and then they put you in contact with Exxon and so on for an attachment with Esso and so on at no cost to them. But even that they don't want, because then they're scared that you are a liability. When they bring you on board, they bring you offshore, you accidentally cause an explosion. They think of all these things and so on. So sometimes people will not give you this opportunity. So as I said, the first job I had with Tenaga in terms of power problem solving was they had a vibration problem in the power station. I went there and made friends with them and so on and say, look, I have a PhD and I know all these things and so on. And they say, yeah, we have this problem. We have a German manufacturer doing all this work. And I offer to do, look, I do assignment investigation with your German consultants. And I will give you my report for free. And then they can compare. So at the end of the day, basically, you need to work for free when you're starting. Clients will never pay for us to learn. As I say, when you're learning, you're doing research. So when you're doing it for free, you actually work for fun. So you don't expect the fish to come to you. So you must contribute to the fishing. I know some of us in UTM and so on, we are saying, oh yeah, let's do it together and so on. But they expect to be paid when they're learning and so on. But you need to build out a business. Okay. So there's no free lunch. Don't expect the fish or the pond to come to you. You make the effort, you prepare yourself, you make yourself relevant, then you make effort to go on a fishing trip. Field work is tough. It is not a stroll in the work. Okay? Because in the end of the day, you must remember there must be a reason why somebody is paying you. So another excuse we have is that I have no tools. We have no wheels. We have no toys. So the answer is make your own wheels. I wanted to talk about some of my mentors, so to say, these are all friends of mine now. They are all world-renowned figures and so on. And I asked them basically about what is their software they use and so on. The answer is we write our own software. Okay. So we buy expensive toys and so on. We are so used to buying toys. But these are all world-renowned gurus and so on. Dr. Smalley Atas has retired. Okay. And so on. But I was a young lecturer at the time. I was asking them about all this. Okay. So my observation of academics, while learning, I expect to be paid. Because the problem is many of us can do other cuti belajar. We get our salaries, we go and do our PhD on pay and also on scholarships. So consultancy is no cuti belajar. And also sometimes we have what is known as ivory tower mentality. I am the best. So fish, you come to me. So the question is, are you really the best? Says who? No. Because business will drop from the sky. Because the best person to say you're the best is the industry, not yourself. So we have what is known as ostrich in the sand kind of mentality. I, professor, I know best. Okay. Because somehow we always shocked incidentally. Oh yeah, I won this award, in the Intertext award. Oh, I have an impact paper, of 5 and so on. I write this, I do this. I have a $2 million research grant, So you think you're the best, but in the end of the day, industry is not about your research skills. It's not about what you know. The question is, it's about how you solve a problem with what you know. So the problem-solving thing is left to be proven. So referrals. So we, alhamdulillah, IKG and so on, we get referrals. As you can see right now, we get referrals and so on. But for referrals, these are only for the best of the best. Okay. So sometimes, as I said, we like to think that we are the best and projects come them. So unless you're the industry very best, that means the number one, or you're the one and only, projects do not automatically come to you. Referrals only happen if you're the best or one of the best and had a developed reputation. So in the end of the day, it's about the bottom. You have to be the best. So you can to become the best. And then you build up your reputation. So once your reputation, put it this way, let's say you need a bypass. Or let's say you have a clot in your brain right now, and it's a matter of life and death. Under those circumstances, You ask around and you ask everybody, wow, who's the best? Because my bypass is very complicated. So and if money is not an issue, or money is the least of the problem, eventually you'll find who's the best surgeon in Malaysia. So in your field, you have to develop that reputation. Okay. So in the end, when there's a mega project and when industries put your reputation on stake, they will find the best. You may not get a job, but you will still be considered for the job. So in that sense, you basically make your own luck. I know everything comes from the Almighty Allah and so on, but rezeki comes to those who work hard. Okay? Even though we are all fishing from the same pond, so all of us go fishing in the same pond. Okay? Some of us get the fish and some of us not get the fish. So in the end, it's about working hard. And the harder you work, the more luck you'll get. And you also need to work smart. That's, shall we say, I wouldn't want to use the word kafir, but that's a layman terms of looking at it. And of course, I think the Almighty will reward those who work the hardest. Okay. Now, then you need to actually submit a proposal. So you need to submit a proposal. A proposal must have a needs statement, because it's not about your needs statement. It is basically about the client needs statement. Why they need a consultant, or why they need a project. What's your objective? What's your scope of work? Then it's about the fees. It's about what the client must give you and about what you must give the client. Then, of course, then about resources, about your schedules, terms and conditions, you see. Okay. Now, you need to negotiate. Sometimes you need to resolve and so on, but you have to resolve that and so on. So you have to arrive at an agreement. And you need to define a scope. You need to agree on a deliverable and timelines. The client may say, look, I want it next week. You say, look, cannot, it can only be done in 1 month. This kind of things and so on. Because if you don't deliver on time, there's usually penalties. Then you must agree on fees and expenses. So negotiations, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but there are whether negotiation skills and look at. But basically, you need to look at to be prepared and to have a strategy. And basically, this is about Harvard talking about negotiation skills. You must focus on value creation. So in the end of the day, you have to combine the resources to satisfy needs. Then you have to talk about fees and so on. There are ways about charging fees and so on. Okay. There are ways to compute and so on, how to get it. But in the end of the day, it's about the cost of sales. You must determine how much it actually costs to do the sales. And in UTM, it's about expenses. You have direct, indirect expense. You need to be able to determine what it actually costs UTM. Because many of us, like it or not, we use UTM facilities, equipment and so on. I mean, the minyak you use, the capital replacement cost and so on, has to be costed for. That someone must pay for the fishing boat, someone must pay for the maintenance, someone must pay the fuel. That someone is you, not UTM. So all this is costed into the project. And then you need to determine what's the fair price. To me, the fair price is the price where both sides are not happy. Because if the client is very happy, that means you undercharge and you are underpaid. If you are very happy and the client is not happy, he thinks that you are overcharging. So if both sides are not happy, then there's a fair price. I mean, that's my, shall we say, experience point of view. But at the end of the day, basically, clients are quite prepared to pay fair price. They don't expect to pay for, shall we say, substandard work. Some clients will squeeze you. It's their culture. Okay. If that's the case, then sometimes you have to go to fish elsewhere. Then you talk about pays in terms of payment, whether your discount is not. Things may go wrong. So you must plan to go wrong. Why it can go wrong? You didn't prepare properly, you didn't check, you didn't your homework. But basically, end of the day, it's about attitude and arrogance. Okay. About not defining the work scope and then misunderstanding and so on. And in the end, basically about expertise. As I said, experts is when all the mistakes have been made, but client don't expect you to make it in your job. So in the end of the day, it's about learning how to swim. You have to learn how to swim. All of us are actually in the big world, in big projects and so on. Competition will be fierce. So you either be better or you be eaten. Then at the end of the day, you're having professional liabilities and people do get sued. Now, I just want to share with you a few slides. And I was asked to talk about sustainable relationship. So just a few more slides. Sustainable relationship means basically in the end, you must be able to give and take. Okay. UST basically, what is expected? The industry expects us to have value proposition, problem solving skills, and deliver on time, accountability, and real world awareness. We expect the industry to give us access to real world problems, funding and income generation, opportunities in R&D. But in the end, when you want to have a relationship, both sides must live up to the expectation. You must have customer satisfaction. You must have trust and mutual respect. And very often, you build long-term relationships. And you must go extra miles. So as you can see in early days and so on, we have a long-term working relationship with Gamuda. They're the biggest in Malaysia and so on, and they're actually working in Australia and so on. We have a long relationship with them and so on. And it started when they moved another university from the project, and then we were then brought in for the project, and then we haven't looked back at it. So we have a long-term relationship with them and so on, and we are in all their projects, and we are the preferred consultant. And at this stage in time, we are going in with Gamuda for the MRT Line 3. Okay. So if Gamuda gets a project, we will get the project. Okay. So this is about relationship. Then about Sunway Construction. They are also another big construction company. We are also their preferred consultant. So whenever they need a noise and vibration consultant, we are acoustic consultant, we also on board. And we also have a long-term working relationship. Okay. And as I said, whenever they need a consultant, we will get a call. And we end up sometimes we will not even haggle fees. We will just agree on a fair fee. In fact, and then we just agree on the work scope. Again, same, they are bidding for the MRT 3 because there are 3 packages. So if Sun can't get a project, UTM will get a project. So this is what we call about relationship, about nutshells. So how to get the projects? In the end of the day, you have to develop the expertise, all the resources that the industry needs. So in the end of the day, it's about what the industry need, not what you think or UTM think that the industry need, because it is different. So how to get started? Like it or not, for some of you who have not started, you need to start small. But when you start small, you must demonstrate impact. So you must demonstrate that you make a difference. It is a chicken and egg story. So you only have one chance to break the egg. So the egg better be hatched. Because if it doesn't hatch, then basically your egg's gone. So your first impression counts. And these are what people say about us. I can see that you are passionate about your work. Oh, he's good, very knowledgeable. So these are kind of things where people talk about your work, talk about the unit and so on. And you also go the extra mile. So, okay, what's next? Well, we are here in 9202, 122, and so on. So, in the end of the day, I guess we're in a situation where money is very difficult, self-sustainability is very difficult, and so on. So, this is where I guess we are back to square one, how to get projects from industries. Okay, so with that, I would end my presentation here.
Thank you very much, Prof. Salman, for very informative, very impressive sharing. Okay, we have about 2 questions here. Okay, first question from Dr. Muhammad Ridwan Adam. Okay, he said that, dear Prof, thank you for the sharing. As we all know, the industrial related projects are normally the problem solving. So what is the best way to approach or to get the chance for this kind of projects, especially for the new lecturer?
New lecturers, you need to be in honesty, you need to work with a company, or you need to work with some people who are doing it. Because it's like a doctor, you need housemanship, you need mentoring and so on. Industries will not go to a young lecturer and then give a project to the person. Okay, unless your skills and your equipment is so unique that there's no alternative. Okay, but under most normal projects and so on, in engineering, especially from UTM and so on, unless it is so unique that nobody else has it, they will not come to you. Okay, so you will need to develop the expertise by a pilot study, or you need to do research into a very specific problems, and then by chance suddenly the industry needs that kind of problems. Okay, and then you say, oh yes, I have done research on this, I have done some background work on this and so on, and then you will get the opportunity, especially problem solving. It's same, look, if you are in the emergency ward, and industries always like to think themselves as an emergency ward, they are having a heart attack. Do you go to a guy who has not treated a heart attack patient, or you go to the guy who has done 20 years of it, and then he says, look, no heart attack patient has ever died, okay? I mean, you think of that kind of scenario. Why would the industry come to us if you have no experience? And you saw my life history in some sense. I started in 1983, 84. If I'm a young lecturer right now, I will be very, 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 very sure I will not even get a chance to smell those mega projects. And this is the problem. A lot of the other universities are friends of mine. I mean, we are in a small community. All of us are lecturers. And lecturers were not motivated by money only. And their complaint about UTM is, and about IKG especially. IKG rebut semua on the tables, and they leave crumb to us. But I say, look, that fault is not mine. Okay. Right now, you can see all this. I'm in fact even sharing with this opportunity. They will see the same news I see. You can even approach Gamuda. You can even approach everybody, But you have to put your shoes in Gamuda, you have to put your shoes in MRT Corp, in Suncon. I, in fact, tried to introduce the Aero Lab for KL Convention Center on a project that I was in KL Convention Center. And this is where the comment is. UTM has an Aero Lab that do wind tunnel testing. And I asked my friends, hey, look, UTM has facilities in wind tunnel testing. So I'm trying to break the egg for the lab. They, in fact, went for a tender interview with my friend, and he's the project director of that. And he pulled me aside after that. Hey, Salman, and so on. Hey, sorry, I couldn't help your friends. Okay. All right. So in the end, they gave it to an Australian company. And KL Convention Center wind tunnel test was tested in RMIT, Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology in Australia. Why would Suncon pay and make a model in Australia if they can make it in UTM? It's very simple. They are not convinced that UTM can deliver. Or they're saying, look, hey, someone, I cannot have guinea pigs on this project. If UTM want to learn, I can come, but not on this project. So you do another project with Suncon. Or do something else and so on. And then you learn. But not on a project where it's like operating theater and you are wanting a surgeon there who can remove whatever, you're in the middle of a heart attack and so on. Do you want to actually employ a guy who has not done it before? Or you're saying, look, hey, I have done this, I can do it with my eyes closed. So you don't blame Suncon for not giving UTM. But there are many projects that Suncon right now can do with wind tunnel testing. But nobody go out to and walk to Suncon and say, look, hey, I know you're doing this, you don't need a wind tunnel, or I even know you do a wind tunnel. But can you share me your drawings? I will do a wind tunnel test for you at my cost. No risk to you. But I only want you to give me and share me the other guy's report, and I share you my report. Are you prepared to do that? The answer is, Salman did it when he was a young lecturer. All right. I worked in Singapore for 2 weeks on a project where my friend is getting paid. I get paid nothing, but he was kind enough. He paid for my hotel. Okay. I did work for Tenaga, and my report was more useful to Tenaga than the Germans' report. Not because the Germans are not good. The Germans never want to keep information. Germans now, the foreign Matsaleh's company especially, where the bread and butter business is doing all this, they will never want to teach Malaysian companies. We are different. I open book with Tenaga and explain to him what's wrong with the thing. And then they say, oh, baru I faham. Matsaleh just tell us, look, you do this, you do this, you don't question why. Why? Because I'm the manufacturer. I'm General Electric. I'm Site Siemens. But you, as a lecturer, tell them and teach them. After that, when Tenaga needs to give us an opportunity, hey, look, and this guy remember about what we did. And when he needs another investigation, he called UTM and myself to do a work in Cathay, Parker. And he also got another American consultant. And they say, look, and he was very honest, Salman, I got this report from the Americans of what's wrong with my machine. And the list is 20 long. I open a textbook also, I can know 20 long. What's wrong with my machine? It could be a crack, it could be this, could be this. I said, I don't even know, I don't even need the Matsalehs to tell me this. He said, look, UTM cannot do worse than this. Okay? So we did not worse than that. I narrowed it down to 2 reasons. And number 1 reason was this, and number 2 reason was this. When they opened that machine, our number 1 reason was correct. Number 2 reason was also there. So once you break the egg, then of course you get called. So that's how you break the egg. This is a real case on how I do work in power station, how you investigate work. But as I said, I had experience in that because that was my PhD work.
Yeah, we need to work extra mile as a young lecturer. I think that's the key point. And as
but you cannot expect to be paid while learning.
Yeah, okay. We have another very good question, Prof. Okay, can Prof share your experience on the dealing or managing with legal agreement and so on between UTM and industry? Any tips to make the procedure simple and the industries are happy with the procedure?
Can you repeat that in terms of what? The procedures?
Experience in dealing or managing with legal agreement between UTM and the industries. So in terms of the legal part, maybe can you share a procedure to make the agreement become simpler?
Okay, this is where UTM's problem is.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of agreement. UTM is very used to MOU and MOA for research. Okay. And then before UTM will sign it and so on, then you have to go through legal, and then you ding dong here, ding dong there, and so on, and then legal don't agree, and so on and so on. Yeah, that is okay with a research agreement. With the industries and so on, we also sign very big agreement, and sometimes the agreement maybe even 1 inch thick. Sometimes the agreement is only 20 pages long. When the industry sends you an agreement, we sometimes send it to our legal if we want the Vice Chancellor or the TNC to countersign the agreement. But UTM procedure is for consultancy project. The TNCs or the VC never want to be the main signatory. They want IKG, and I'm the guy who signed the agreement. They may become witness, and that one legal will check it. My answer is this. The industries don't entertain whether you agree or don't agree. This is my agreement, you sign. You want a job, you sign. Okay? And usually they warn you about, usually the biggest issue is only this. It's about LAD. If you don't deliver a job, if your report is late by 1 day or 1 week, we shall charge you 1% of the job, or $1,000 per week. That is the biggest one that we always complain of. And another one is also liability. This is another job where we did for Suncon again. This is KL Convention Center. They say any error that you make, the cost of fixing that error, you pay. Okay, that is very serious. Then I told the guy, hey, look, and our job was only $500,000. Look, that error we make sometimes can cost $5 million. And it's not reasonable for you to actually put that kind of thing to us. And sometimes you have to disagree. The industry norm is that you pay 2 times your fees. So if your fees is $1 million, then you say, look, my liability is $2 million. Then you need to buy an insurance. So you have to buy professional insurance. I don't know about now, but 2 years ago when I asked UTSB, in UTM who do consultancy have professional liability insurance? The answer is nobody. So you go wrong, they sue you a few $1 million, and people get sued. Which is why I flashed through the slides because I want to leave time for Q&A. People get sued for not delivering. So IKG have insurance. Okay? And in the MRT project, I think as of next year onwards and so on, we have to increase our professional liability. It is spelled up front. You must buy an insurance of $5 million. So you buy it. Because they say, look, if you made a mistake and I need to fix it, I will sue you for up to $5 million. You don't pay, your insurance company pays. So you must have professional liability. So to me, that's the biggest issue in the contract. Anywhere else after that is about non-confidentiality. You cannot talk about it. You cannot publish it. Hard, cheaper, and so on. So I don't find major issues with contract. But there will be problems if finally you go to legal. So put it this way, a lot of agreements we sign are signed on the understanding that IKG assume full responsibility. So you are prepared for that.
Okay, we have, I think this will be the last question, okay, from Dr. Ramesh Zaidi Rozan. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Truly amazing, honest sharing, okay, and he's very inspired. And the question is, okay, being a consultant is really good, but it requires a lot of time in performing the consultancy project. So how should a consultant can be transformed into becoming an investor to a consultancy company? Is it possible from consultant becoming an investor to a consultancy company?
Very hard from my experience, but there are, I think, two companies that are public listed. I think HSSI is one of those companies and so on. And another one, and in America and so on, there are a lot of consulting companies. ACOM and so on is also public listed and so on in Singapore and in Australia and so on. So there are consulting companies that are public listed. Uh, when you say investment company, it means basically in the end of the day, you either be like listed and then public listed and so on. Otherwise, then you have to take the money that you have and then you have to invest. I know of many consultant friends. The consultancy income is just cari makan. But the money they cari makan, then they invest. So I know of architects and so on who have used the money, like very famous one, Hijas Kasturi and so on. And then the money, then he basically then built hotels and so on. There are companies and so on that then basically use the money to build their own building and so on. Because it is totally different. Consulting work is, as you say, it's hard. Because in the end, basically consulting work is about man hours. Okay. But there are many friends of mine who are very rich, very well off and so on. But they invest their money in the fees and so on. And I'll be honest with you, okay, the money that I earn and so on, also, you spend less than what you do and so on, and then you use the money to invest. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, sometimes the investment actually will make more money than consulting. Okay. So then you have to find alternatives. So what do you do with the income? But dulu pernah was discussed before, where I was talking about whether you can actually sell the company to somebody. Consulting is about people. So I know of friends again who have retired and so on, and they sold their company when they retire. And part of the condition of sale is that the principal must still be there. Yeah, because you sell a company. Consulting is about people and know-how. It is not like a factory that you can sell and then you can automate the process. Because in the end of the day, consultancy is about knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Salman. A very amazing, informative sharing. I think I should pass back to the organizer, FMRA, for photography session.
Okay, thank you very much to our beloved Professor Engineer Dr. Muhammad Salman Leong and Professor Madya Dr. Nurhaniza Yusuf for the beneficial sharing session just now. For your information, all of guests, the link for the recording of this sharing session will be given to all of you via email. Okay, before we end our session today, I would like to invite all guests, all of you, to turn on your camera and give your best smile so that we can freeze this moment as a token of remembrance. Please. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Hold on a second. One, two, three. One, two, three. One, two, three. This will be the last one. It is all for today. Thank you very much again to our Professor Engineer Dr. Muhammad Saman Leong and Professor Madya Dr. Nurhazan Yusuf and all of guests for today. We will meet again at our next training session. And again, the link for the recording of this session will be given to all of you via email. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.